good that we listen to that, of who we are. God's Spirit lives in us. And therefore, we have all the power that God gave to His Son gave to us. So we have the power of Jesus living in us through His Spirit to do the very things that Jesus did in the world. To make the world a better place. That's who we are. You know, and when we celebrate once a year the sacrifices and the work of our military and of those who lead us to war, we forget at times that we live in a world that we're warring with all the time. The world is constantly challenging us to let go of what we believe so that we can do what the world wants us to do. And the world wants us to be greedy, and selfish, and self-centered, and indifferent to the plight of others. The world says, hey, look after yourself. Make sure that you get out of life everything that you want. Not necessarily what you need, but what you want. Get it out of life. And don't worry about how it affects other human beings. Don't worry about that. And as a world, we buy it. I was in Tim Hortons the other day. Once in a while, I go to Tim Hortons. And there were 4 or 5 people at a table. I didn't know any of them. And they were talking about somebody who was sitting over on the other side. You know, Tim Hortons, you come in that side door, and then there's another place on the other side you can sit. And they were talking about a woman over there. And every once in a while, they'd point. And I was standing in line for a coffee, and they're not saying very nice things. So I walked over to the table, being the idiot that I am. And I said, why don't one of you get up and talk to her? She's right over there. You never saw 4 women become so quiet in all of your life. And they're looking at me, and I said, no, she's right there. You're talking about her, aren't you? Then I went and got my coffee. Didn't taste very good. But you see, we talk about bringing peace. We celebrate and remember the sacrifices that others made for us. And seldom are we ready to make the simple little sacrifices that we have to make in order that there be peace in our homes, among ourselves, among brothers and sisters. To make those little sacrifices. We don't have to take a gun and kill the enemy. We just have to die to ourselves, and to our anger, and to our resentment, and to our hurt, and learn to treat other human beings with the dignity that we expect them to treat us with. That's how war begins. War doesn't exist outside of us. It exists in us. You know, when I go to certain homes and I hear children talking to their parents as if their parents were insignificant people. And I shake when I hear that. I can't believe that someone could call their mother something, or their dad something, or refer to them in such negative, violent terms. And then I wonder, how can we ever create a world of peace? children don't learn to be at peace with one another amidst their problems and difficulties. Every child has difficulty with another child. That's true. That's part of growing up. That's part of being human. That's part of being Christian, when we learn to handle the cross. I don't want to stop talking about him. I enjoy it, actually. I like to put him down. I like to see all the negative things about him. I don't want to build him up. See, if we really want to celebrate on the 11th, we have to remember that wars are caused by us. We don't have to go to Middle East. Sometimes we've just got to go to our own home. Sometimes we just have to go to our own relationships. Sometimes we have to look at those we call friends and say, I'm sorry. Sometimes I have to speak a kind word to someone I've hurt. Zeal for his temple drove him. Do we have a zeal for the Spirit that lives in us, that challenges us to love and to take care of one another, to be kind to one another, to recognize that sometimes our words and our actions and our attitudes affect people and cause people pain? Are we willing even to look at that and recognize that we are God's temple, that God's Spirit lives in us? Therefore, we have the power to make the blind see, the deaf hear, the dumb speak, and the dead rise. You and me, we have that power. And sometimes it's just a simple smile, kind word, a gesture that gives somebody hope. You know, on Armistice Day this year, let's remember the sacrifices that others have made so that we can live in peace. And let's promise ourselves that we will do everything in our power to pick up the cross where we need to pick it up, so that there might be more harmony, more peace, and more love in our homes, in our parishes, and in our communities. I love you all. I believe in God,
Father Almighty,